And people told me I'm crazy. Like, why would you do this? We all know how strong Finland is, how digital it is. I'm from Germany, and Germany is very far from being a digital country. I think what I then experienced also on the academic side is the kind of low hierarchies and the high empowerment within. And in Finland, what you have is this unique combination of being very modest, but then really overachieving the goals. Finland is a very reliable country, also when it comes to infrastructure and digital infrastructure. This combination of technology and design, Finland has so much great technology that could or should be much more known out there in the world. Then living in a bubble is sometimes hard, I must admit. Also for a foreigner, maybe not the most kind of open ones to integrate into, because by nature Finns are a bit more introverted.
Hello, welcome to Joy of Finland, the podcast that highlights Finland's strengths and areas of improvement. I'm your host, Matt, and I'd like to introduce our guest, Jan Goetz. Jan is the co-founder and CEO of IQM Quantum Computers. IQM is building world-leading quantum computers for the well-being of humankind, and it most recently raised $128 million Series A2 round. And another fact about Jan, like myself, he loves dogs. So without further ado, I thought we could get started, Jan, with you sharing a little bit more about your story, how you got to where you are today, and especially how you got to Finland.
Right, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. It's a great pleasure. So I have a background in physics, more on the scientific side. So I studied physics and did a PhD as well, studying basically what happens if you cool down high-frequency electrical circuits to very low temperatures. And this is where I got my PhD in, and this is also what in the end brought me to Finland, because actually here at Aalto University and also at VTT, the Technical Research Center, there's lots of research in this field, and there's a great community here studying also such kind of quantum effects. And I decided after my PhD first to do a postdoc at Aalto University. So this is basically how I came to Finland in early 2017. And I was working on a project there at Aalto, mainly on designing and building components for quantum computers. Because the nice thing is that these electrical circuits, in addition to creating great physics, they actually can also be used to build computers, these quantum computers. And of course, we can dig more into this. But ultimately, this is what brought me to Finland, is the great scientific community here at Aalto and VTT, which was really fascinating for me, and for me a good step to start my scientific career. And of course, when I did this, I did not have in mind to maybe start a company at some point. So this really came as a surprise also for me. But in the end, I think it was the right thing to do. And this is after 2 years of postdoc, then what I decided with 3 other co-founders to do, to start a company to really build quantum computers.
Yeah, thank you very much for that context. And I guess we could get started where I guess the entrepreneurial path wasn't in the plans. So what changed, or what made it so that you wanted to go down that road?
Well, basically on a postdoc level, usually what you have is these 2-year contracts. And once they end, you have to find something else. Sometimes you find follow-on funding in the place where you are, but sometimes this means you just have to go and continue elsewhere. And for me, actually, I was thinking to continue elsewhere, and I was talking to the professor I was working with, Mikko Mötönen, and said, hey, I think I'm going to apply for some junior professor positions here and there. And then he said, well, that's a good idea, but why don't you just stay and we start a company together in quantum computing? This was in end of 2018, and at that time, you had already first startups in the field in the US. There it started maybe already around 2016 or so that the first startups were created. But in Europe, usually things are a little bit delayed compared to the US. So there were not yet so many startups in Europe, but it was clear also back in the day that the capital was available. And at that time, we saw big funding rounds in quantum happening. And we thought, okay, actually, it's the right moment to not do it anymore on the university side, but really build large-scale computers more in an industrial setting. And this was the idea. Of course, we didn't really know what it means because no one had ever started a company, none of us founders. But we knew that we wanted to make it big. And kind of this is, I think, also what entrepreneurship is all about, is to make things big and then really let them fly. And this is what we were trying to do since the beginning. But of course, we had no clue. So we started many things, tried many things, and started many things. Some of them worked out well, some of them didn't work out so well. But in the end, now we have a company that is quite successful, and I think that has a very bright future.
That's great to hear. And at the start, you touched on the scientific community at Aalto is something that brought you to Finland, and maybe that's a nice bridge into talking a bit more about Finland and its strengths. So maybe you could expand on that, and I'd imagine that would be a strength you'd consider.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when I was actually finishing my PhD and then thinking that I would stay on the academic side, I was looking, of course, for jobs in different places. And I had an opportunity in the US, I had an opportunity in Barcelona, and then I had this offer here at Aalto in Finland. And people told me I'm crazy. Like, why would you do this if you could also go to Barcelona and hang out in the beach and stuff like that? But I think ultimately it was really the scientific merit and also the infrastructure and the opportunities in the research community which made me come here. And I think Finland is a very tech-heavy country. I mean, we all know about AI, how strong Finland is, how digital it is. I'm from Germany, and Germany is very far from being a digital country. So I think Finland is very kind of affine to new technologies, and it has been very strategic when it comes to quantum. So the low temperature labs there at Aalto, they were established already in the 60s, and Finland have strategically been funding it. So it was also kind of very strong foresight into, the potential of quantum. And I think what I then experienced also on the academic side is the kind of low hierarchies and the high empowerment within these organizations at the universities. But of course, this is now also something that we live in the company, is try to keep the hierarchies low, try to empower people, enable people to really strive and do their best. And I think this kind of people focus and focusing on the strengths of each individual, this is really something that stands out in Finland.
For sure. And being called crazy, that's something that resonates for me as well. I moved here from North America, and friends and family were like, what is going on with you? And the reason I started the podcast is to share more about what's so great here. And I can definitely relate to the low hierarchies. I mean, I've been working in the startup ecosystem here, and especially there. And I guess it generally applies to Finland culturally in the business world. And as someone that's young, that's very empowering as well. And then I guess moving forward from there, what other strengths would you say Finland has?
Well, of course, Finland has this ability to really push the limits, and people, of course, here in, let's say, also a rough climate environment, I think they tend to just do things without complaining a lot, and really achieve great results. And this is something, especially, of course, in the scientific world, but also in something that is a very new disruptive technology is very important. Actually, in quantum, there's little bit of a hype at the moment, I would say, and people make all kinds of promises in the newspapers, and entrepreneurs go on stage and tell quite a lot of things. And I think in Finland, what you have is this unique combination of being very modest, but then really achieving or even overachieving the goals. And this is something that is, I think, very healthy, especially for now the quantum community, where we have been hyping the field a lot. And we need companies that achieve their goals, because ultimately the technology is still in its very early stages and there are many years to come. And this means there's also a lot more funding needed in order to make the technology commercially viable. And this you will only achieve if you are kind of honest about where you are, honest about where you go, and then you really go there and achieve these goals. And I think this is really outstanding in Finland, is this honesty among people, but then also this ability to achieve things and just do it, and not kind of complaining what is all so hard and not possible and this and that. And this is what I really like also about our teams, is that you give them a goal. Of course, it needs to be kind of a realistic goal, but then they will just go and do it, and they will surprise you in the end positively with how much they have already achieved.
Yeah, it sounds like that honesty and humility, and I'd also add the word sisu there in terms of how to push through harsh conditions and problems like quantum computing. And for the audience that might not know about what sisu means, it's hard to define. There's not an exact translation, but I would say it relates to grit and perseverance and getting through hard problems. Then the other thing I would ask is maybe something that informs your experience in Finland is coming from Germany. So maybe with that context, is there any comparisons besides Finland being maybe very much more digitally inclined that you see as strengths of Finland compared to Germany?
Well, this for sure. I mean, when I go back to Germany, you always find these places where you don't have mobile phone receptions. The trains are not the most kind of punctual ones, and I think Finland is a very reliable country. Also, when it comes to infrastructure and digital infrastructure in particular. So this kind of reliability that you can really be sure that things will happen is something that for me is always, of course, very nice. When it now comes to Germany, of course, also in Germany, we say we are kind of punctual on time. You don't come late usually. I see this now in our company where we have, I think, close to 50 nationalities, so very diverse team. Of course, we also have people from Southern Europe or even Southern America or other places where the culture is really different to Finland, and maybe some people struggle more. But coming from Germany, I think the society is not that different. Of course, this for me made it also quite easy then to integrate and to really live here, be part of the society. And this is something that I really enjoy in the end.
Yes, right. Thank you very much for that context. And I suppose we could already shift into weaknesses and areas of improvement, but any final thoughts about what you like about Finland?
Of course, I'd say in a slightly different context, I really love the nature, and this is for me always great to just go out and go for a hike. Now, of course, in the snow, but also in the summer. I love the design. This is also something that we have kind of anticipated and taken in the company, is that we build quantum computers, but also we want to make them look beautiful and appealing to the, let's say, non-quantum expert. And I think this is another thing here in Finland, is this combination of technology and design, bringing the different aspects together, that I really enjoy. The simplicity of things, but then also the functionality, and really creating their symbiosis between those things.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen what IQM looks like, and the look and feel is very unique and special. So, of course, Finland is my favorite country that I've lived in, and it sounds like you've had an amazing experience here as well. But with everything amazing, there's always pitfalls and things that could be improved, like I've said. So, what do you think Finland really needs to focus on to be the best country it can be?
Well, what I mentioned earlier is this kind of, in Finland, people achieve their goals, but they don't brag about this, right? They don't kind of go out and say, hey, look at this and this. So I think on the marketing side, there is still some room for improvement, and making sure that all this great technology from Finland is not only existing here in this relatively small ecosystem. If you think about the global level, Finland is not the largest economy. So I think going out there and really selling what we have in Finland, and selling also all these positive aspects, this is something where there's still some room for improvement. Of course, this is something also, if you think from a European perspective and compare it to the US, where in Europe in general, I think we are often a little bit underselling what we have. But I think Finland in particular, I think has so much great technology that could or should be much more known out there in the world.
Oh, I agree absolutely. I think there's such strong technical talent and technology, but it comes back to that humility and making it difficult to brag. And maybe it ties to even Finland being the happiest country in the world, and Finnish people find that surprising. But I think that's where people like me and you can come in, where we can brag about what's great about Finland, and people from abroad can really shout to the rooftops about what's so great. And maybe while we're on that topic, I suppose that involves bringing international people, and maybe that's a constantly evolving topic about Finland and integration and all kinds of things like that. So how do you see Finland and international talent and its internationalization?
Well, of course, I live in a bubble a little bit myself. And as said, we have close to 50 nationalities in the company. So the company, but also the university environment is very international. And English is the kind of daily language that everyone uses. And I think from this perspective, especially in these areas where there are lots of tech companies, I think this is working already quite well. But of course, really getting into kind of the Finnish society, then living in a bubble is sometimes hard, I must admit. So I know also from my wife, she's working in a different company, that it can be a bit harder if you are kind of in a different context to really integrate. But I think also this is just normal, and this is what's happening in other countries too. But I guess, and this is also no surprise, is that Finnish people are not the most outspoken ones. So maybe they're not also for a foreigner, maybe not the most kind of open ones to integrate into, because by nature Finns are a bit more introvert, I would say, compared to especially Southern European countries. But yeah, in our bubble, I think we're managing just fine.
No doubt. And I guess I can relate to that as well, because I've worked in the startup ecosystem. Now I work at Slush, and before that, working at a very international company as well. And when you're in that bubble, when it came to my experience here, I thought Finland was very international and everything. But as I started talking about this more, it's when I got additional context about outside of the tech scene, for example, where things don't necessarily work that way. And I suppose my view is the other areas of Finland maybe need to catch up to tech for the society and the economy to really, really move forward. So then moving forward from that, any other areas of improvement you can think about?
Of course, there's always something here and there where things could be improved. Overall, I really enjoy the standard of living here. I enjoy the kind of flatness, not in the kind of countryside meaning, but in the society. And from this perspective, I think it's a great place to be.
Great. I think that's honestly all the questions I had. And I want to thank you again very much for being here. I wonder if you have any last thoughts to leave with the audience before we conclude.
Well, maybe just because I'm representing a tech company which is kind of aiming to define the future, and nowadays we hear a lot of bad and negative news out there, and I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm positive by definition. So my last thought is that just look bright, look positive into the future. I think it will always be better than what we have at the moment. So
Great closing remarks. So thanks again, and take care.
thank you.